So I'm at the laptop. It's late at night. I'm alone at my office. I'm on my payroll vendor website, and I'm about to cut my salary to zero. And like, I can't click the button. The company's in crisis. We're out of cash. I put this off for as long as I could, but there's no more delay. And I'm thinking, like, how did I get here? I've built a really cool company. We made a lot of money. We have big impact. And all of a sudden, now my days are dominated by like shame and fear. And I'm in this place where I can't even bring myself to pick up the phone to talk to customers. I'm sitting there with my finger on the button thinking, I am done. But I got to save the company. So click. And for weeks, I'm in the haze. I can't see any way out. And then I'm standing on the streets in San Francisco. I'm talking with my colleague, my forum mate, VJ, and he's patiently trying to help me. I need some kind of plan to turn things around. And we're reviewing all the planning systems, the scaling up and the tractions and the getting things done. And I keep objecting to him that all these systems they're about taking actions. They are action plans. And my problem is that I have no motivation to take, or no inspiration to take any actions. And I blurred out my frustration and said, I don't need a sales plan. I need an inspiration plan. And that's when it hit me. It's an inspiration plan, a plan to generate those emotions of inspiration. And I had in that moment some ideas about the neuroscience of inspiration. When I went to work on it, though, everything changed. Not only did I find my inspiration, like promptly my company's profits exploded 10 times greater than they had ever been. But my health changed, my body fat dropped, my relationship with my daughter blossomed. So that's what Hacking Happiness is about. So we have an hour today to explore, what I discovered, what I did, what I do, and why I believe we have the ability to intentionally control our internal biology. And when we do, we create these magical results out in the world simply by focusing purely inside ourselves. The way I'd like to do this today is the virtual format is nice. We can do this conversationally. So I can't see everybody on the screen, but when anytime you like, just go ahead and open up your microphone and say, Mike, let me ask a question at this point. I find it can be real rich, and we can dive into anything that you're thinking about, or examples you have, or questions you have on any of the points I make along the way. We're going to take an hour, and then if we have time at the end, we can do more Q&A at the end. But go ahead and let's just be conversational along the way. The insights and systems I'm sharing here are the result of the tremendous advances in neuroscience and psychology in recent years. So when I say we're focusing inside ourselves, I don't mean this in like some cliche Facebook meme sense. I mean taking intentional control of our neurobiological systems to create the emotions that underlie all success. The systems I'm talking about are neurotransmitters, little chemical messengers that our bodies and minds use to get everything done. Over time, as I worked, there are 4 neurotransmitters that I came to care about. Each of these hormones, as they rise and fall in our bodies, create distinct emotional states. These are the biology of our emotions. Serotonin is the anchor chemical of happiness, of joy. When our serotonin is high, we're happy. When it's low, we're sad. Serotonin is more than just joy. It is self-actualization. It's our feeling of purposefulness. It's our contentedness. It's our confidence is an expression of serotonin. Oxytocin is the love chemical. When I tell you, I love you, I'm feeling oxytocin. It's social bonding. It's a good hug. It's that team feeling. Like that's the love of oxytocin. So what's cool is that the science, the studies are showing that when we are high in oxytocin, we literally increase our creative problem solving skills. Our immune system is boosted, so we get sick less often. Oxytocin literally increases our tolerance for physical pain. You are measurably stronger and smarter when you're feeling love. And even though oxytocin is objectively good for performance, we're smarter, we're stronger. Expressing love, especially in a work environment, can feel super weird. So when you're thinking about this, think that love, remember that love is not sex. Love is the intentional willing of well-being onto another person. It is wishing them well. So you can love total strangers, right? I love you. Dopamine is different. Dopamine is the reward chemical. Dopamine is why we want to win. Dopamine is the high five. It's the score. It's the close of the deal. So are you a goal setter? Like if you're a goal setter, you are responding to your dopamine. Dopamine is a powerful driver of human behavior, and it's addictive. So dopamine is why we write our action plans and action plans work. But chasing dopamine is why we open social media 1 million times a day. Like our brains see the little red bubbles and they get a little hit of dopamine. It feels like we're doing some work. Dopamine is conditional. You did good. You just did good. Where oxytocin is unconditional. I love you. Cortisol is the villain in our story. Cortisol is the expression of stress. It's anger and fear. You know, fight or flight. Like fight or flight is cortisol in action. When we feel the cortisol, we are feeling these anxious, stressful emotions, and it forces us to either freeze or run. It's fight or flight. Cortisol tenses our muscles. It slows our digestion. It forces narrow, impulsive decisions. Cortisol stores body fat. Our bodies surge cortisol in an attempt to handle the crisis. So the important lesson here when we're looking at these 4 neurotransmitters, the lesson is that the research now shows that the emotion and the chemical are inextricable from one another. There is no emotion of joy without the body surging serotonin. And I call this talk Hacking Happiness because their strategies, the hacks, are specific actions that we can take to purposefully control the neurotransmitters to optimize the benefits. So that brings us to the first hack. There is a mindset concept that I teach. It's called no coming and going. The basics are this. The brain and body have no distinction of inbound versus outbound happiness. There's no receiving love distinct from giving love. There's only the level of the hormone. The experience is the hormone and vice versa. So this means to feel oxytocin, I merely give love to those around me. You are amazing. I love you, Jenny. your your happiness neurotransmitters are, they're like a magic gold mine. So where the act of digging creates the gold. So we give love out and we receive, we build our own oxytocin. We get the benefits, the smarter, stronger, better problem solving benefits, for example, of oxytocin, by choosing to give love out. Here's an exercise that I like to demonstrate this concept. To hacking happiness, so hack our happiness, we're going to give love out. I call this exercise love and magic. Here's how it works. So I have a former foreman, Jim, he's the founder of $100 million company. And he's heard me develop these ideas over the years. And Jim was at a conference in Germany. He's schlepping around for a week. He's exhausted. He's sitting on the bus, going from the hotel to the conference center. And, you just get drained after the travel. But Jim needs to be on the ball for his customers, like seeing customers and prospects. And so he starts thinking about the hacking happiness framework. And he says, Mike says, if I give love out, I feel the benefits. So let me try. And Jim tells me this later. He's sitting on the bus and he looks at the bus driver and he thinks to himself, I love you. You are awesome. I appreciate the work you're doing here today. You are amazing. And then he turns, the guy sitting, you don't have to say it, he's thinking it. Turns to the guy across from him. I hope you kill it today. You're amazing. And, you start to smile. You think about it. I'm smiling. The oxytocin rises, the serotonin rises. You start feeling the benefits. So he tells me he goes through everyone on the bus. By the time he pulls up to the conference center, now he's ready to like jump off the bus. And he says, I'm just knocking down my meetings. And with just a few minutes of focused giving love, Jim has changed his internal biology and he's literally changed the trajectory of an entire day. So you literally, when you do this exercise, you literally make yourself stronger and smarter. But here's an interesting thing. You're also making the people around you stronger and smarter. The way this works is, so humans are social creatures. And so we can literally test that when I am thinking about giving love out, I am increasing the oxytocin in the people around me. We align our hormones, our internal systems to the others in the room, especially to the leaders. So the lesson here is that because of the no coming and going principle, when you choose to give love out, you're creating the oxytocin inside yourself and in those around you. The researcher here is a woman by the name of Barbara Fredrickson. The book is an amazing book called Love 2.0, where she talks about the science of oxytocin and how giving the expression of love, giving that intentional wishing that intentional well-being onto other people aligns the hormones together, and you literally escalate the benefit of the people around you. So here's what you can do every day. And I call it love and magic. Remember, love is just the intentional willing of well-being onto another person. The magic is what results in our lives and our business. So like Jim, we can love total strangers. This love and magic exercise has an important feature. So when you're doing it, the feature is unconditionalness. This is Jim sitting on that bus going, you stranger, I love you. Like, I want you to succeed. I legitimately want you to have a great day. I want it to be awesome. I want it to be your best day ever. And it's unconditional. That unconditionalness is a characteristic of the oxytocin. When we say, you did a great job, you're amazing, that conditionalness is a function of the dopamine. So do like Jim. Take a moment, if you would, with me right now. Pick someone in the room, pick someone in the view here, and think about giving love to that person. Think about, John, you're amazing. I love you, man. Like, I want you to kill it today. Just take a moment and think about that.
That feels good.
It feels good. It feels good. And it's what's fascinating. So our hormones align via three mechanisms. It is in the room, like it is visual. So you see me, like, but it is also visual and auditory, like we can talk it. It is biological. It's literally exchanging tiny little microbes between each other. It's electric. So, but because it's also visual, it actually carries in a Zoom environment. Like, we can literally escalate your oxytocin across the screen. I did this the other day at the gym. So I'm at the gym. I'm having a lousy day. I don't feel like being there. And I think, all right, let's give it a whirl. Right? Like, I'm sitting at the gym, and can I get myself out of my low funk? And I, look at some stranger in the gym and go, I love you. You are like, I love that shirt. I love you. Like, and it take just a few minutes. It is entirely shift of the day. This structure is based on a Buddhist practice called loving kindness, which I'll share in a minute for you. Okay. It gets a little more advanced too. So they work in concert. So for a few minutes while I'm talking, they're all firing. Like, my cortisol is up to help me succeed, to focus. A lot of times we're in peak mode, and especially a group like EO, we're in peak mode and we're executing, and we haven't had to pay attention to the joy and love. We're in peak. And so we're in this invigorated state on left. They're all firing. But often when I work in a group like this, I often find people who are successful, but kind of miserable. Do you know anybody like that? Do you know anybody in EO who might be like, I am done with this company, right? So think about this state in the middle. We get stuck in a dopamine cortisol cycle. You can get rich executing on the dopamine and responding to the crisis, but ultimately it's hollow and unfulfilling if it's not first supported by the serotonin and the oxytocin. The serotonin is the joy and purposefulness. The oxytocin is the love of the team. And so we can execute, but if we're not, and I was here for years and I didn't know it. But then what happens if we're not careful? All of a sudden, we don't even care about the goals anymore. And we're on the right, and we are stuck in just cortisol, this depressed mode. And the fact of the matter is, modern life has our cortisol elevated all the time. It's the phone buzzing, it's traffic, it's the mortgage payment. Cortisol was designed biologically for us to hit the crisis. It's to run from the lion. But everything we do in our modern life has our cortisol elevated all the time. And so what happens is we get stuck in a downward spiral of worse performance. And that's when I hit my crisis with myself and my company. The good news is that we can interrupt the crisis through the hacks. We can create the biology and therefore create the emotions, joy, inner peace. And so you can imagine that the biology of that inspiration plan that I needed, like Vijay was telling me about, he was guiding me through all these dopamine, cortisol action plans. What I needed was serotonin. So this state that we have to put ourselves in, you can imagine the biology here. We're high in the unconditional serotonin and oxytocin. Then we can add the goals of the dopamine, and then we drop the cortisol. So 3 up, 1 down. We create this biology, and we feel inspired. We feel the benefits. So you can, it sounds cliche, but like this state is a superpower. From this state, all the truly glorious success just flows. Think about, for a second, think about the most creative, charismatic leader, maybe a former boss or a coach, and think about that, like that, how powerful that person was in your life. And then think about this state, right? It's the joy in the team, the love, then the performance, and not driven from fear or anger. Like this is the state from where all the great things flow. And many of us, especially many of us in EO, when we're in the high executing mode and we work hard on a lot of these practices, we put ourselves in this mode, but we don't know that we're putting ourselves in this mode. If we're not careful, we drive into that dopamine cortisol space. But when I'm in this space, like I feel good, therefore I make more phone calls. When I'm on the call, I'm more charismatic. I solve problems faster, right? Because I'm literally smarter. My vision is wider. So you get, for example, you get an objection from a customer, boom, you handle it much more quickly. And then if you handle the objection fractionally more quickly, all of a sudden the sale happens more easily. It's like, no wonder success just happens. Okay, Mike, I'm in. Give me the hacks. The next hack is we're gonna talk about is something that actually almost everyone that I talk to likes. It is supplements. So it turns out that 95% of our serotonin is produced and stored in our gut, our small intestine. And as a result, you can supplement to build your serotonin very easily. The supplements I'm going to share are over the counter. They're non-pharmaceutical. They're available anywhere. A lot of times people have questions on this page, so fire them at me if you want to ask while I'm talking about them. But they make a huge difference. And interestingly, we can supplement each of the neurotransmitters. So serotonin, the supplement is 5-HTP. The T is tryptophan. It's a common amino acid. You can buy the 5-HTP at a health food store, and it is it's the building block of serotonin. It's also a building block of melatonin, so it assists in sleep. For cortisol, for stress reduction of cortisol, there are 3 adaptogens that help the body metabolize the cortisol out of the system. So the cortisol spikes when we have our crisis. And then by using rhodiola rosea, L-theanine, and ashwagandha, those help the body metabolize the cortisol back down out of the system. For dopamine, the supplement is an amino acid called L-tyrosine. And interestingly, for oxytocin, you can actually buy an over-the-counter supplement for it. It's a prescription. It's a nasal spray of all things. But the good news is you don't need to supplement for your oxytocin. You simply give love out. It is important to know, for example, that because, for for example, 5-HTP is actually a powerful antidepressant. Depressant that if you are on things like SSRIs, like the pharmaceutical antidepressants, talk to your doctor before you start these. And there are also ways to take them to optimize the benefit over time. Is there questions on the supplements before I move on? Sometimes
Yes,
people want to know when or how often or those kinds of things, but we can also hit them at the end if we still have
I think
questions.
I hear somebody coming in, Mike. Did someone have a question?
Yeah, I do. This is Brian Phillips over Kiosk and Display. Hello.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah, hi there. Excuse me. Is there are there any dosages in particular that are recommended here?
So the dosages are, you're going to like they're going to be, on the label of the capsule when you get it. A couple of things I think about. So 5-HTP is, I like to take it at night, feel better the next day. Serotonin has a longer half-life in our bloodstream. It's multiple days. So we build our serotonin and the glow lasts over multiple days. So you take it, over time. But I don't take 5-HTP all the time, in that I want my body to be doing the most production. But then when I feel down for no reason, 5-HTP is an excellent way to supplement for a few days to bring myself back out of that space. With the adaptogens, I tend to rotate between rhodiola, L-theanine, and ashwagandha, so that the body isn't focusing on one and building like resistance or habit with one. L-theanine is in green tea, and it's why the caffeine in green tea is a much more mellow reaction than caffeine in like black coffee, for example. It's because there's L-theanine in it. So I rotate those in and out, but I'll take 1 or 2 of those each day, and I might go through a bottle and then switch.
Oh, other quick question. What does the L prefix mean?
That's the labeling of the amino acids. It's about the chemical, the underlying chemical, the amino acid.
Thanks.
All right.
Quick fact, I think serotonin is in warm turkey. It releases tryptophan. So we're
Yes.
all good. We're all good next week.
That's right. Tryptophan is in turkey. It's the thing in turkey that makes you sleepy. But you can also imagine that. So you get your serotonin, you get your oxytocin from the family love. It's why it feels really great. And then if you're watching football, then you get some dopamine when the Falcons win. So there you go.
That could be sometime.
I have a quick question. If you have an incident or a series of incidents that cause high cortisol levels, like a difficult couple of weeks or a stressful situation, and you're having a physical reaction to that, how do you know how much to take and when you're better? How do I know that my cortisol is back to where it should be?
So this is just one of the hacks for your cortisol. And so it is I may make sure that I'm having it every morning, with my breakfast, 1 or 2 of these. So the 2 to combine, theanine and ashwagandha, are great. If I'm going without caffeine, rhodiola is actually really useful in that one, because it actually has a little upper. So if you're in a stressful, anxious place, I might recommend going with the theanine rather than, for example, rhodiola as one of those options. And then there are, let's move on to the other hack so you can feel about when your cortisol is going. There's a number of things, and we should be working them all together if you're in that stressful mode. All right. The next hack is is easy. It's one that anyone can do, and it's journaling. So the no coming and going principle, remember, is why journaling works. There is no difference for the brain between inbound and outbound happiness. So the brain can't conceive of joy, even in like memories or fiction, without boosting the serotonin. So that's why writing each day, and it can be writing in the morning, it can be writing at the end of the day, writing those positive, happy, love-filled thoughts is another generation of serotonin. It's there's no inbound or outbound. So all we do is we choose to do the outbound, and we get the benefits inside ourselves. There are interestingly journaling types for each of the 4 neurotransmitters. The one simple journaling for serotonin is the affirmations journal. So this is one of the things and I used several of these when I was really emerging from my crisis. But the affirmations journal is really powerful. So you start the day with a few sentences or paragraphs of like, I, Mike Simonson, can't wait to work with my team and my customers today. I love to watch them succeed. I like to write my affirmations with active voice verbs. I do, I love, rather than I am. And that is, and the other thing that the science notes is that the journaling with pen and written on paper is more impactful to the neurological effects than is typing on the laptop. But if you've just got the computer, do it there. But if you've got the paper journal works better. Oxytocin is why gratitude journals are so powerful. So, we remember that we generate our oxytocin with being grateful of our community. That act of generating that love literally makes us smarter. So this is why gratitude journaling is so powerful for changing our impact on our day. And this can be gratitude. So I like the details around what we're grateful for. It's not just like, hey, I'm grateful for you, but it is, I am grateful for the things you bring into my life. I'm grateful for the moments we get together. I am grateful for the last several years. The details around the circumstance are what allow us to really, like the creating vividness around the gratitude is the act of the brain generating the oxytocin to conceive of that scenario. So we're using that, again, that no coming and going principle to build our oxytocin in the morning. When I was in the heart of my crisis, perhaps the most impactful one, and this, as you mentioned, like when I was feeling the intense cortisol, and this is me, waking up in the middle of the night, sweating. It's me wondering what I'm going to do next. This is how am I going to get out of this? The trigger journal was the most impactful for me at that time. That trigger journal is when I feel the cortisol trigger, I stop, I write what I'm feeling at the time, I write the circumstance that is around me. And what's happening neurologically is the cortisol trigger happens in the amygdala. It's the reptilian, it's the oldest part of the brain, the brainstem. And the amygdala tells the adrenal gland to produce cortisol because I'm afraid, or I'm angry, or I need action. And so it's reactionary. It's subconscious. By taking that in, recognizing that moment, and then writing as many of the details about it as possible, you take it out of the amygdala into the prefrontal cortex, and the cortisol signals fade away. When I was in the heart of my crisis, I noticed I can go back and look at my trigger journal at the time, 3 or 4 times a day. I would come in a big visceral wave, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I would write it. I would write what triggered it. It was this phone call. It was this email. It was, and then all of a sudden it's, a few times a week. And then it's a few times a month. And then now I go back every once in a while and I go back and look at it and write it down when something really triggered me. What I noticed is as I got better at the trigger journal, I wouldn't even be done writing the details, that little paragraph, and I'm already writing my solution. Like I've trained myself to drop the cortisol production really quickly, and now I'm switched into solution mode. The trigger journal was super powerful. And then interestingly, I talked about this already, the action plan, the traditional action plan is about dopamine, right? You do this thing, good job, little hit of dopamine, good job, little hit of dopamine. The thing I like to teach is that our action plans, we should do our action plans after we do our serotonin and our oxytocin. Because if we don't feel purposeful, if we're not connected, we don't care about the actions. The other hint on the action plan is anytime you create one, a to-do list or an action plan, make sure at least 1 or 2 of the things on the list are already checked off. Because now you hand that to-do list to someone and they go, oh, I've already done it. They get a little hit of dopamine. If it's empty, it's just a cortisol trap. It's like, oh my God, I've got all these things to do. So make sure you have, like, especially your onboarding customers, you're like, I want you to do these 4 things. You've already done one, like first step, good job. So you give them dopamine before they even take action. What I did with VJ, my former VJ, was he was handing me a bunch of action plans. And what I needed was a serotonin plan. Okay. Let's move on to the next level.
Pardon me, I have another question.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Have you ever, excuse me, have you ever revisited your journals? Have you ever looked back and said, let's look to what goes on a year ago today?
Yes. So I do sometimes. It's sometimes to see, like, because it's really like, remember when you're reading your affirmations or your gratitude, you get the benefit, right? You get your boost of those hormones. So I like to do that. One of the triggers, though, one of the things that is difficult for a lot of people on journaling is they have this, if you've never done it before, you have this conception that it's like some leather bound thing for my grandkids. And, like, I'm writing a bunch of nonsense in there. I don't want my grandkids reading this, right? It doesn't have to be for anybody to read, even yourself, if that's a hurdle for you to get it done. But I do sometimes I like to go back and like you read, you go, oh yeah, I was really grateful about, have the opportunity to talk to Alana today. Like, how amazing was that? Teresa, the green tea has L-theanine. That's the adaptogen that was in there.
Hey, Mike, this is Shawnee. I had a quick question. Can you just say again, I wrote down what is happening in the moment with the trigger journal, and then I got obsessed and engrossed in your story.
Yeah,
what were the other questions? There was a methodology with the trigger
Yeah,
journal.
so you write the trigger, the thing that ticked you off, and then the details around it. And like, what was happening? What was I feeling? Where did I feel it in my body? What are all the things? And what I noticed is that once I started to get more skillful at it, all of a sudden my last few sentences are like, what am I going to do next? Like, I'm already moved myself out of this narrow fear mode, fight or flight mode. And by the time I'm writing, now I can see my options in front of me. All right. Okay, let's move on to meditation. Meditation is a little more advanced. And when I talk about meditation, I often get resistance from a crowd like this. People are worried about the time it takes, the effort. It sometimes seems a little San Francisco hippie, right? So, but keep in mind, cortisol is bad, and meditation is simply the skill to lower our cortisol. And what we can see now in the functional MRI, the brain scan research is just exploding on how meditation literally changes our brains, and it changes it in the immediate term, but then with persistence, like a physical workout, it changes it longer term. So like you're building the skill, you're building the muscle. The researcher who has done the best work here is Daniel Goleman. He's the Harvard psychologist who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence. His book on the science of meditation is called Altered Traits, where like altered states are like drugs we take, but altered traits are how meditation is literally changing our emotional, our biological characteristics over time. And he categorizes all the research that's going, documenting all the changes, the neuroplasticity, the changes in our brain structures with the meditation practice. Here's what happens. So when the crisis hits, the fear and the anger trigger that reptilian amygdala part of our brain. And that tells the adrenal gland to generate cortisol so we can jump into action. But the modern world has our cortisol generating all the time. So meditation is simply the skill to calm that modern thinking, interrupt the amygdala so the cortisol signals fade away. And then as you build your meditation skills, you have the ability to drop the cortisol when you're not meditating. That's the skill. Okay. So we now know that meditation instantly and then persistently with practice lowers our cortisol. Interestingly, the type of meditation that they've shown to have the most profound impact on our biology is the Buddhist loving kindness or metta meditation. In this one, you are meditating, so you're calming the thinking, so your cortisol drops, but you're also practicing giving love out to the world. The traditional way the Buddhists teach it is by give love to yourself, then to the people around you, then to the whole world, then even to people who want to actively do you harm. Like that's the skill. What I find is that in the US and the West especially, it's actually not the right mode. For me, the hardest one to give love to is, anybody know? Anybody have it?
So
For me, what was it?
Yourself.
Myself. That's right. The hardest one to give love to is myself. So if you think about that love and magic practice, you think about how easy it is to give love to your friends in EO, your colleagues in EO. Like, I want them to succeed. And you think about, I want everyone in this room to succeed. I love you. You're amazing. And then you remember you're in this room too. And that's how I build my practice of love and kindness, to include myself. Then now I'm in that skill. Now I'm like giving love out. My oxytocin's flowing. My cortisol's down. Then I can think about the whole world. I can think about people who like actively want to do me harm. Like, I want to give you love. And that's the real skill. And you watch the Buddhist monks who practice loving kindness, and that's super, super powerful. They have the most profound impact on their brain scans. Transcendental meditation was easy. It was useful for me when I came out of my crisis because it's a class you take, you pay, and you go to the class for a weekend, and it was a really useful. And I'm sure there's transcendental meditation centers in Atlanta that you could go, and it was useful for me. It's not just an app. That was a good way for me to get going. Okay, let's move on to evidence. How do we know this works? I'm going to start with so back in the heart of my crisis, I get a call, or actually, let's do this. So this is a chart of my company's profit over 9 years. And you might notice a change in 2017 when I started this hacking happiness process. The interesting thing is I didn't set out to achieve profit Profit was nowhere in my set. I only set out to hack my happiness. I only set out to fix inside myself. This is the result. We didn't change our product or our team. I didn't even tell them what I was doing. I only worked inside myself. So focus inside ourselves, create magic in the world. So what's the mechanism? Back in my crisis, I get a call from a longtime customer. And I'm fighting it. Revenue's going down and I haven't been paying attention. I get this call and it's like, voicemail, Mike, call me. I can't do it. I can't return the call. He's going to cancel. I can't take another one. I avoid him for weeks. Finally, a meditation, get my courage up, my cortisol down. I pick up the phone and he goes, Mike, how do I add 100 employees to my account? He wants to triple his business with me. But because I was in fight or flight mode, everything coming at me is this cortisol trigger. When we're in the dopamine cortisol cycle, we think we're achieving, but we're fragile and we get stuck in there. But now imagine we've elevated ourselves through hacking happiness, through our serotonin and oxytocin to an entirely new level of performance. Now, when that critical call comes in, and they're going to come, now we are boosted by the purposefulness and the love, and then we can solve the problem, and then we can add the dopamine on top, and that's the moment that it's rocket fuel. So that's why in my team, for example, we don't do an action plan year at the end of the year. We do a serotonin plan. We focus on how we going to create joy in ourselves and in others. And then the actions that we're going to take, they're obvious. They're easy to take because we feel such connection and joy. So that's how we organize our annual planning at Altos Research. So I share these ideas to a new group. I often get a lot of resistance, especially around the concept of giving love to employees, saying, I love you. The biggest objection though I hear at this point is like, really? Can I do this stuff, Mike? The answer is absolutely. And even if you're never going to express love to your employees, you now have the knowledge that hacking happiness, the mastery starts with the insight that we can be intentional with our biology. We have control. And when we control the biology, the emotions result. So I have next steps for you. I hope you made some notes for today. You can contact me if you want to follow up with specifics. I have lots more hacks around business, around planning, around happiness journals for your team to, for example, your happiness journal, your happiness work with your team, your mistakes fall for happy teams because oxytocin and serotonin are high, you're smarter, therefore the team makes fewer mistakes. It's unbelievable. And I have some real examples of companies who've had big exits as a result of doing this work with their team. But it really doesn't matter where you are in this process of transformation. You may be at peak performance and just executing very well. So use these lessons to never lose that magic. You may be stuck in that burned out dopamine cortisol track. This is how you break free. That's what I did. Even if you're a skilled practitioner of many of these tools already, these hacks, use this knowledge to remember why. Maybe teach others why all this work you do actually creates the magic. But if you remember nothing else from today, remember this. When I say, I love you, I'm creating that magic for you. When I say, I love you, I'm creating that magic for me. When I say, I love you, I'm creating that magic for the world. And I love you.
Thank you, Michael. We love you too. It was awesome.
I love you, Rhonda.
No, thank you so much. I
Thank
don't
you.
know. Do you have like five? I think we have 5 more minutes.
We
Can
got 5 minutes. Let's do some questions if people
Awesome.
want to.
So Mia Van Wagenen wrote in the chat, what's the name of the love book that you mentioned in the beginning?
Love 2.0, Barbara Fredrickson. That's where she talks about the psychology of giving love, the biology of oxytocin, and the biology of how we quickly adjust ourselves to each other.
Okay, awesome. And then Hani, well, I think she just put a comment. She said there's a TM center in Atlanta. So thanks for sharing that, Hani. Does anyone else, I think that's all I have in chat right now, but does anybody else have a question they want to ask and share while we have Michael? Michael, are there any, I don't think I put it in the chat, but what's the best way for everyone to reach you if they want to get some more information or?
They can reach to me at mike@altosresearch.com. I have lots of resources, like you know, the examples of companies doing happiness journaling for their employees, happiness practices for their employees, and literally changing their revenue and trajectory of the entire company. Really powerful stuff.
Okay, awesome. And I want to thank you too, Michael, for letting us record. We will, when the recording is available, we'll place it on the EO Atlanta site under resources. So thank you for allowing us to capture this content information. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And Michael, thanks again for all of your help. Thanks for sharing your expertise and time with us.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.